So you remember at this year's Oscars when Demi Moore didn't win for Best Actress, but instead this girl got up to give a speech? And we all looked at each other and were kind of like, the hell? Well, this is Mikey Madison. She is not, in fact, the little girl from Twilight Eclipse that I had previously thought she was. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was the girl that got beamed in the face by a can of dog food thrown at her by Brad Pitt, which, if you gotta go, that's not a bad way to go. But welcome back to Booze Mini Reviews, where I, Aunt Boo, drink a mini bottle of booze, and I'm going to review Anora. This movie came out last year. It's on Hulu right now, and it stars Mikey Madison. This movie also won Best Picture at the Oscars. I'm not quite sure why. If he dies, he dies. Sputnik. So Mikey Madison plays Annie, a stripper slash hoe who is called upon to entertain this Russian boy, real twat of a kid who happens to be the son of billionaires because she has Russian heritage and can understand Russian. But as she explains to Ivan, the twat, she can understand pretty much anything he says because she had a Russian grandmother who refused to learn English, but she can't really speak it all that well. This is a really interesting detail that I think works as a metaphor for her character in general. Because she's pretty tough and street smart, and she has incredible survival skills, she understands the world around her enough to interpret what's happening to her, but not enough to actually benefit from that knowledge in a way that is life-changing. And in typical idiot fashion, this kid kind of develops a crush on her, invites her over to his house. She's immediately impressed by his wealth and his opulence. He lives in a big mansion that belongs to his parents, and he woos her a little bit, but then ends up just jackhammering her while she laughs in his face. And after a couple of days of this, he's like, hey, how much would it cost for you to spend the week with me? And I've heard reviews that this is what Pretty Woman was supposed to be in the original script, but couldn't be because of Hollywood. And I guess that's true. If Richard Gere had had the body of a 13-year-old hairless alien and Julia Roberts had actually showed her hoo-ha, then he whisks her away to Vegas where there's more partying, more opulence, and this kid has no real responsibility or attachments to things. This becomes pretty apparent to Annie when Ivan loses about 24 grand at a blackjack table and then is like, eh. And for a split second, you see the look on her face like, dang, that is over twice as much as what he's paying me. And they're having a lot of fun in Vegas, and Ivan doesn't want it to end. He's like, I have to go back and work for my dad over back in Russia, but I won't have to if we get married. So Ivan proposes to her. He's like, hey, I'm already lazy and worthless. I already lay around and play video games all day and smoke pot. Why don't I just become a lazy American? It doesn't take much convincing for her to agree to it, but she's like, hey, if you're gonna be doing me like a rabbit this whole time, I'm gonna get a big ring out of it, which, go girl. Yeah, get that ring. So they get married in this quickie marriage in Vegas. And there's this great soundtrack behind it, like, this is the moment, the day of your life. And she's comparing herself to Cinderella because what a fairy tale. They go back to New York and settle in, Mr. and Mrs. But soon enough, reality comes knocking at their door, literally in the form of these two goons that were sent by his handler, I think, because you can't be the son of a billionaire Russian and marry a stripper prostitute. And so the Armenian version of Yakov Smirnov and this other guy, Igor, they show up and they're like, hey, Ivan, the jig is up. What does Ivan do? Like the cowardly twat that he is, he just runs away, leaving her there with these two goons to fend for herself, which she does, and quite well. She kicks their asses. It's pretty funny. They spend a good amount of time trying to track this kid down. And in the meantime, this guy, Igor, is really the only one who treats Annie with a modicum of humanity, even though he has to like tie her up to get her to stop kicking all of their asses. Why wouldn't she want to fight for this marriage? This is her dream come true. So she fights and she gives it all that she has. They finally track Ivan down. So Ivan's handler takes them to the courthouse to get a quickie annulment. That's not the way it really works. They have to go back to Vegas in order to get an annulment. And this throws a big wrench in everything. And the shit really hits the fan when Mother Russia lands in New York City and she comes in all Ivana Trump-like and she tells Annie, you are not a member of our family. You're a prostitution whore. Annie is trying this whole time to get Ivan to stand up for her, but he can't because at the end of the day, he is just a stupid kid and he is a cowardly twat. Annie doesn't want to get on their private plane to fly to Vegas. She knows she has some cards to play and she plays them. She's like, I didn't sign a prenup. I'm gonna sue all of you, especially after Mikhail Gorbachev there stole my ring. I think I'm running out of Russian celebrities. My knowledge is pretty limited to like the Bear and the Ushanka, Rasputin, and Katya. So this goes over terribly with Mother Russia. And she's like, I'm going to make your life miserable. I'm going to take everything you have. And I'm thinking, bitch, she humps the floor for a living. She doesn't have a bank account in the Cayman Islands or anything. She can't get much lower. And it's not until she threatens Annie's friends and family that she finally gives in and gets on the plane. But I love her because she's just so unhinged the whole time and cursing out everyone and is reminding this mother that she raised a terrible person, because they're all terrible people, except Igor, because he sees something in Annie that he recognizes in himself, because Real recognized Real. He sees her as a fighter, as someone who will stand her own ground. They get to Vegas, they end up annulling the whole thing, but not without Annie getting a few digs on the mom. Like, look, you're the one who raised this little trash ball, and in fact, you're all trash. Before they leave, Igor is like, hey, shouldn't he apologize to her for putting her through all this crap? And the mother, of course, who's raised this asshole kid, is like, my son will not apologize to anyone. So they send off Igor and Annie back to New York, and once they're there, they have a very short moment of recognizing the humanity in each other. But she's so hardened and defensive, and all of this sadness is just taking a form of anger. Every time he tries to be nice to her, she just goes off on him. He takes her home and they park outside of her apartment. And just as she's about to get out of the car, he stops her and he pulls out the wedding ring. He must have lifted it from Mikhail Gorbachev. And she's clearly affected by this moment of kindness. But because she's such a whore, she cannot interpret any act of kindness from a man without perceiving it as some kind of sexual exchange. And that's exactly what she does. She climbs in his lap, she straddles him, she starts going to town on him. But he's like, oh, wait, let's make some eye contact. This is too vulnerable a moment for her. And after keeping it in this entire time, she finally breaks. And she starts the most gut-wrenching sob. And he just holds her. And that's it. Mikey Madison was brilliant in this. She really was. She's got a great future ahead of her, and I have a feeling we're going to see her in everything from here on out. And not since Leah Remini have I heard such a fantastic Brooklyn accent, but Demi Moore should have won the Oscar. And I'm not quite sure why this won Best Picture. It is a great movie, and the script is really good, but I think Wicked should have taken home Best Picture, and I'm going to stand by that. But I recommend this movie, especially if you don't have a problem with nudity, humping, and white Russian butts. Like and subscribe.